Hello and welcome to the first video of my channel. I wanted to talk a little about my Minecraft world and how I play on it. This is just a video about habits I've picked up that help me stay motivated and excited to play survival. I hope you find this video helpful or entertaining, and with that I'll begin. The first habit I started was to avoid making a build in creative mode to see if I like it. I know this is something a lot of people do where they make something in a creative world and then remake it in survival once they've perfected it, but I almost never do this. The reason for that is that trying things out in my survival world first makes the whole experience feel more immersive. In case you don't know, immersiveness or immersion is kind of like how believable something is or how real it feels. This is why I prefer building in survival. It is more difficult, but actually going through the struggle of redesigning a build, I find gives it more character. Now, immersion and character are quite intangible concepts, so I'll try to clarify what I mean. When I look at something I built in the past, I relate it to my memory of building it. If the structure I'm looking at is something I designed in creative before recreating it in survival, I have very little recollection of actually making it. However, if I made a build in survival, I have a lot more memories of how it was made, and those also tend to be more unique and interesting. Those thoughts and feelings I get, which aren't actually physically part of the build, but still are tied to it, is kind of the best explanation I could think of for character or for immersion. Also, this doesn't just apply to building in creative, I also avoid redstone and building tutorials for the same reason. Another reason actually that I forgot to mention is that if you avoid planning a build out in advance, the process of making it is then more interesting. Because I usually don't know how something will turn out when I'm building it, I want to continue until I'm done, because I'm curious to see if it works well. The benefit of having these kind of structures with character I mean, dotted around the landscape is that it makes my world actually feel like a world with its own history and life and secrets, and not just like colourful pixels on a screen. For me, striking a good balance between a structure's usefulness and its appearance keeps me engaged in that project much longer. But what do I mean with a good balance? Well, an ideal balance is where a build has both a reason for me to visit it and an appearance that makes it fit into the world. I'll now show two examples of where I didn't do that. The first is this creeper farm. Quick note, I didn't design this farm, instead I used a YouTube tutorial to build it. I've tried to find the original video I used in the past, but although there are a lot of videos displaying the same or at least a very similar design, none of them are the ones I remember using. The next part of the video is not a critique of the design of the farm, but a reflection of how I built it in my world. I built it a while ago when I needed a lot of gunpowder, but I didn't bother with how it looked. I only ever used it once, just after I built it. Afterwards, I didn't return because it irritated me so much that there was this random cobblestone thing in the middle of the ocean that I just pretended it didn't exist. The other example is this cave I made quite recently. Whilst it looks nice, I didn't enjoy building it. The lack of a material objective meant I would either not feel motivated to continue building, or, more commonly, I would log in feeling excited to continue building, but I wouldn't know how I should approach it, and then I would just log out eventually feeling stuck without having made any progress to the build. What solves this issue for me is creating a cycle that begins with identifying something I'm missing, then working out what I can create to supply that need, and finally creating a build to fit that creation. I'll use the example of this horse paddock I'm currently working on in my survival world. I originally needed a fast horse, and while I could have just searched a while for a fast horse, I chose to build a paddock with stables to house and breed the horses in, and then also a racetrack to test their speed. But to breed the horses I needed a carrot farm, and when I had a carrot farm, I made a farmhouse and brought farmer villagers over to fit in with the horse paddock. If I then needed saddles and name tags for the horses, I could then employ a leather worker and librarian, who could then also live in another building I could then make. This might seem like a waste of time. If I already had carrots and I don't need a second saddle, both of which I had before starting the project, why did I go to the effort of getting them? Well, for one thing, it gives me a clear list of things to do and in which order. If I find something is missing, I build it, and if not, I know I'm done with that build. On top of that, it makes a lot of otherwise mundane tasks actually quite fun. Every time I run out of materials, instead of constantly taking the same route to and from my base, I add to the project in a different way each time by making a new section of that world, of that project, to help get those resources. The third reason is it gives a project a lot more of the qualities I mentioned in the first part of the video. Different parts of a building supplying each other with what they need makes it a lot more intriguing, believable and immersive than a building that just looks like it sprang out of thin air. You can probably tell that I don't mind doing something the longer, more difficult way, even when there's a simpler and easier option. This includes me setting myself my own limitations or rules when I play Minecraft Survival. So for example, I don't use the elytra in the overworld or nether, and I don't use a bed unless I'm at a base, and I also don't use villager trading halls. I find these systems are partially designed to minimize the time you spend doing tedious jobs, but the problem I find is that they can easily replace features that are actually more fun, at least for me. Forcing myself not to use these mechanisms has made me engage with the Minecraft world in ways I wouldn't have done before, and also value things that would have previously been basically useless to me. I wouldn't have made this horse paddock, for example, if I didn't use horses, and that's been, I think, one of my favourite projects. And this island I used to only visit to look at is now a place I actually make a detour to visit, because going there means I don't have to get ambushed by mobs when going through the jungle. Don't get me wrong, the elytra can be extremely cool to fly with, and it suits loads of people better than the minecart or horse, but limiting myself in these ways brings me more enjoyment in the long run. Anyway, that was the video. I hope you found it interesting or maybe even helpful. As I said at the start though, this is just a personal reflection of how I play the game. These habits work for me, but everyone's different. I've enjoyed making this video about my survival world, but in the future I want to make videos that are more hypothetical, looking at Minecraft's design, how and whether features can be improved or fixed, that sort of thing. If you're interested in that, then I guess you could subscribe. Anyway, thanks for watching until the end, and I hope you have a nice day.